There are basically two competing schools of thought regarding goal setting taking place these days. One says set challenging, meaningful goals and get after them with all you got. And the other says forget the goals, fall in love with your systems, and the results will take care of themselves. 30 years in, I say it's a combination of the two. And every artist still standing has learned that. Chances are, the hard way. In this video, I want to walk you through 5 principles pulled from both schools and tell you exactly where I was when each one of them finally made sense to me. Principle 1, clarity. The most dangerous assumption a young artist can make is that talent plus effort equals inevitability. I made that assumption, and for far too long. Given my former child star acumen, my fellow former Mouseketeer contemporaries, and just sheer artistic hubris, I had a serious sense of entitlement, bordering on toxic. Let's just say an attitude like that is straight up unsustainable. Fortunately, humility doesn't always require embarrassment. After a few records and about 10 years of touring, I wound up on the road with a couple of other LA-based indie singer-songwriters. And because I had a more substantial national tour history at that point, it was decided that I would go last each night. I remember sitting there night after night, brooding in the corner, growing increasingly frustrated at the state of my career, jaded that things hadn't quite panned out the way I assumed they would by then. What I began to realize, though, in watching my fellow musical companions, is that they had never made the assumption that they were going to succeed. They had simply decided, one song, one set, one signed CD at a time, they were going to succeed. They were filled with gratitude and expressed it at every turn. And I realized that that was something I had more or less turned my back on and forgotten all about. And one night in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'll never forget it, at a venue called the Evening Muse, not more than a couple songs into my set, it happened. I don't know if it was just like the southern winds blowing through the stage door or the southern hospitality I'd only heard about up until that point, but something shifted. It was like the hard, jaded exoskeleton I had built up all around me began to crumble and peel away, till all that was left was a genuine, authentic, vulnerable purity, gasping for connection. I was so concerned with trying to be famous that I had completely overlooked the importance of trying to connect. Clarity isn't a vision board. It's what's left after the fantasy burns off. And the career that I actually built began the night I quit assuming and started deciding. Principle 2, challenge. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, says, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And nothing will test this notion more than a good challenge. For me, it was one of the many lessons I learned during the COVID lockdown. For me, and just about every other artist I know, COVID quickly became synonymous with live stream. All of us forced to park the tour van and hop online to drum up as many fans as we could, as frequently as we could, to start playing shows from our basements and bedrooms. And although the outpouring of love and support was a bit overwhelming and completely life-affirming, the novelty of it all began to wane as the pandemic dragged on. I knew that if this was going to become the new norm, even in the relatively short term, I was going to have to up the ante on the production value. So after a few months of streaming, I decided to take a few weeks off and build something completely new with a little more substance. I took a crash course in a broadcaster software that allowed me to present multiple cameras, improved audio, graphics, and pre-taped guest interviews. I mapped out entire seasons of the series at a time, charged admission, and started an entire new merch line. More importantly, I built a life raft for a community in need of connection, a community that continues to thrive to this day. The constraint wasn't the obstacle. The constraint was the curriculum. And what I built inside that limitation outlasted the pandemic by years. Principle 3, commitment. Goal setting theory says commitment happens when your goals align with your values. And that's true. But there's another element of commitment that a lot of people don't talk about. The kind that kicks in when the motivation runs out, when the album cycle ends and the next album is just a blank page staring back at you. That's when I stopped relying on discipline alone and started relying on something much deeper. After several months of touring and several thousands of dollars on music videos and radio promo, the writing was on the wall. It was time for me to call it a day on my 8th studio album, the eponymous Tony Luca LP. Why this was so hard for me, I couldn't figure out for the life of me. I mean, this was hardly my first rodeo. I had moved on from other albums in the past. But after some time off the road and out of the studio, I realized I was beginning to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Heartbreak. I was heartbroken. I loved this record. I was so proud of it. I thought for sure it was the one that was going to put my career on the trajectory I had always dreamed. And when it was over, I just could not seem to muster the inspiration, the motivation, the courage, the confidence to get back on the horse and try again. It got dark, I won't lie. Eventually, I came back around to picking up the guitar, strumming it here and there, listening with half an ear for something new, something inspiring. And what seemed like aimless, half-hearted searching was really just the muscle memory of discipline. Because one day I sat at the piano, began to play a new set of chord changes, and all at once sang out the opening line of my song, Everything's Changing. And just like the writing of It's You, it came to me, start to finish, in about 45 minutes. And as I wrote and sang out the chorus for the first time, I began to cry. Hard, too. The weight of the heartbreak began to lighten, and I realized it was time to quit pouting, that there was going to be new music, new songs, a new album. Everything's Changing became the first of a couple dozen songs I wrote for my subsequent Ain't No Storm album. And it became the very wind in my sail that I would need to get into the next chapter of my recording career. Discipline gets you to the desk. The muse is what's waiting there when you show up consistently enough to earn the visit. Principle 4, feedback. Now, most artists treat criticism, constructive or otherwise, as a threat. I know I used to. But the truth is, a tough critic can teach you volumes more about your approach to your craft than any glowing review might. And although you'll never ward off all the critics, you can certainly beat enough of them to the punch to prevent any unnecessary discouragement. If you're a young artist or an artist looking to hone and grow your live show skills, I've got 2 words for you. Record everything. Seriously, get a GoPro, set it up at the sound booth, record it, start to finish, watch the whole thing. If you can't swing that, get a board mix from the sound engineer. It's basically just a 2-channel mix of the whole show. Listen to it, take notes, see what's working, what's not working. I'll never forget watching a video of one of my first shows with a band in LA. I thought something was wrong with the VCR. I was playing so unbelievably fast, I couldn't believe how much work I still had to do. Again, the artists who grow the fastest aren't the ones with the most talent. They're the ones willing to watch the tape. And when you can do better, you'll know it. And then you'll have no reason not to. Principle 5, complexity. Sometimes we can hold on to our goals a little too tightly. We can lose perspective. Sometimes we just need to look at the vision we have for ourselves through a different lens. And once again, a why is often a great place to start. I grew up with the dream of being a rock star, getting up on stage, playing for thousands of people every night, traveling the world on a tour bus and having legions of fans. That was my goal, and I worked hard to prove it. Over time, it became more about the connection, quality over quantity, the coffee house over the stadium. My goals began to reflect my intention more, and I started reaching for things like authenticity and gratitude. Eventually, though, it went even deeper. A lot of my fans know that I have a very dedicated meditation practice. And one time during a meditation, I recall trying to arrive at a word or phrase that might best sum up what it is I want to do with my time and talent going forward. Eventually, one word rose to the surface of my awareness, and it was service. How can I be of service more? Wow, okay, let's see what that looks like. And within hours, let alone over the next couple of days, a string of opportunities came to me that basically coupled my skills and talent with opportunities to be of service to other friends and fans and artists that needed my help. It was wild. One of those calls was to join my old friend Brett Young's band for a European tour, for starters, with the potential of it becoming more full-time. I had never imagined being a side guy, let alone for a pop country artist. It just wasn't on my bingo card, at all. But I went to Europe, and I fell in love with the gig, and the team, and the band, and yes, getting up on stage, playing for thousands of people every night, and touring the world on a tour bus. Now, I get to fulfill so many of my childhood dreams, while also putting out new music and playing shows of my own, and mentoring young artists with my 30-plus years of industry insights. A music career is the most complex project there is. And the artists who survive it are the ones who quit trying to control the outcome and start designing their days instead. 5 principles, 5 moments I didn't see coming that taught me each one. Clarity, challenge, commitment, feedback, and complexity. It's not a goal-setting framework. It's a career. Which one of these struck a chord? Which one have you been working on? And which one have you been avoiding? Drop it in the comments. If this is something you needed to hear today, go ahead and subscribe. I'll see you next week.